I have the books here. Okay, cool. Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Nat, in case you didn't know, and today I have an exciting video. I mean, every video is kind of exciting to me, but today I'll be talking about non-fiction titles for Nonfiction November. Now, as you might know, you might not know, I read a lot of non-fiction on this channel, and I have been following Natalie's channel as well for quite some time, and I always love the non-fiction titles that she recommends. So I'm super happy to be able to recommend some of my own books, titles for Non-Fiction November, and to share what I'll be reading for this month. So the first book, which is by the topic of time, is called The Sixth Extinction by Elizabeth Kolbert. Now I have it as an ebook, so I can't really show you the book, but I picked this book because I've been reading a lot about climate change and about the environment recently, and it hasn't been easy kind of like reading about kind of today's view on things. It's a lot of very disastrous numbers, a lot of proportions that I can't quite make sense of. So I picked this book up because I wanted to get a more historical perspective on climate change and about the mass extinction that is happening today. So yeah, I think the topic of history kind of relates to the theme of time, and I hope that that would kind of help me get a deeper understanding of the scale of things. I think history is super important for us to understand proportions and kind of the linearity of things, and how exceptional certain things are today. So that is the first book. The second book is on the topic of movement, and I have the book here. It's called Feminist City by Leslie Kern, Claiming Space in a Man-Made World. Now I picked this for the topic of movement because when I think of city living, I do think of like movement, travel, and I think a lot of the travel specific kind of constraints that women face in cities, it's one of the kind of biggest, I guess, like obstacles, or it's where you see the inequality the most, I would say. So I would be interested to see how this book actually compares to other books I've read on cities. Recently I did read one book called Happy City by Charles Montgomery, but I felt that his perspective was very much a very pleasant one, one that was not really from a very specific critical lens, and so I'll be looking forward to how this author might apply a feminist framework to understanding cities. So I think that would be super interesting. Third topic is discovery, and for that I picked this book called The Meat Question by Josh Berson, Animals, Humans, and the Deep History of Food. Like I said, I am undergoing a bit of a climate change and environmental studies kind of phase right now, which is, I would want to continue that, and I want to keep learning about that. I think the journey that never really stops. But nowadays, when I think about meat eating and how that is usually kind of like the forefront of like changing your diet for the planet, many people get a bit defensive and they're like, no, I have to eat meat, it's natural, it's part of our diet, etc. And I picked this book up because I thought it was really interesting. It seems to have quite a variety of perspectives towards the meat question, and I think one of the most interesting things was the association of meat with economics here. So Berson seems to argue that we have the relationship between biology and capitalism backwards, and that meat eating is a sign of poverty and not wealth. That is a very interesting premise. I think because of that I picked it up. Okay, and so for the last topic, which is buzz, I picked this book up, and this is called Curationism, How Curating Took Over the Art World and Everything Else by David Balzer. And yeah, I think you probably also feel it too, that the word curating or curate is being thrown around everywhere, and that curating is now a very common act across many disciplines. I mean, me and picking books to show you is also a form of curating in itself. And I recently read the book Ways of Seeing by John Berger. I really enjoyed it. I think that I am not really an art student, but I've always enjoyed learning about the arts and learning about art history and critical thinking towards art. And so I think that, and I'm of the belief that art really reflects our social reality, and that there's so much to learn from being able to read art and to see how art relates to us. So I think this would be a super interesting topic to think about how the act of curation within art galleries and within the art world kind of also infiltrated into everything else. Yeah, so that is kind of like, it's kind of tangential to the other books that I'm reading right now, but you know, I don't know, man. I think hopefully I'll be able to finish reading this in November. I just wanted to add as well a bonus for this video. I am from Singapore, and I realized that on BookTube we don't really have a lot of like Singaporean booktubers. So I did want to recommend 3 of my sort of essential non-fiction readings for Singapore. It's really noisy outside because the kids are playing, but yeah. So these are the 3 books I have here. They all happen to be essay collections. I'm so sorry, I think I tend to read those kinds of books. These are books that I've bought because I really enjoyed the premise of these books, and I think they're quite important. So the first book I want to recommend is this book called Air Conditioned Nation. Air Conditioned Nation by Cherian George. It is a not revised, but like a republished edition of the original one that was in 2000, if I'm not wrong. But yeah, Cherian George he's a commenter, like he comments a lot on the politics in Singapore, and I think I really enjoy this book. I've read only half of it so far, but because it's an essay collection, I don't think you have to read it in one sitting. I do think that it is a book that you would revisit over and over again. And for viewers who are not from Singapore, I do think that this is a very good starter to Singapore politics. I think you might have heard a lot of bad things about Singapore, our draconian laws, our lack of freedom of speech, etc. But I do highly recommend that you can pick this book up to kind of understand a little bit more of the political landscape here in Singapore. Yeah, I think personally I'm still learning a lot about the politics here. I mean, the sense of yeah, I mean, I don't have much to say about it because, you know, yeah, just read the book. So the next book I want to recommend is called Growing Up Perempuan it's published by Aware, and I have just started reading this. I think I will be parking this as my TBR for November, but I did read a few excerpts as well from this book already, and it is a collection of essays of the perspectives of Malay Muslim women in Singapore. Now, you might not know, or you might know, Malays are a minority race in Singapore, and they are mostly Muslim identifying. So Perempuan is woman, so it's about growing up as a woman in Singapore. It's Perempuan, like woman in Malay. My battery died, so I'm using my phone right now. But yeah, as I was saying, I think that this is quite an important book to be published, and that the literary scene in Singapore is a wonderful way to get more minority voices heard, you know, outside of the everyday that in which they probably won't have much of a say as the majority race here in Singapore. Now, I know I recognize that I pass as I am Chinese, and so I definitely am part of the majority race in Singapore. I think that it is very important for me to keep understanding and keep learning more, and to also just be open to reading beyond people who are like-minded to me. So yeah, I would really want to recommend this book. I think especially if you are Singaporean, I would urge you to also pick up certain titles that are by minority voices in Singapore. I think that they have a lot to say about Singapore that the majority often does not really validate or legitimize. I think we shouldn't be doing that, honestly. Yeah. So the very last book I want to recommend is this book, and it was very popular on the local bookstore scene. I think for good reason. It is probably like the only critical essay collection written about climate change in Singapore. I mean, the movement here is pretty limited in some senses. Like, we don't have as much of a grassroots we don't really have as much of a grassroots effort as in other countries because of certain restraints and limitations as to how we can politically kind of protest, I guess. Will I get censored for that? I don't know. Yeah, so this book is called Eating Chili Crab in the Anthropocene, Environmental Perspectives on Life in Singapore, and it features a whole range of diverse perspectives. Did I just repeat myself? But it is a lot of young people writing about climate change in Singapore. I think that in itself is a pretty good premise to read the book. Again, I think if you are watching this from outside of Singapore, I do think that this also gives a lot of local context. It's about really bringing in big global issues on climate change and making them relevant to Singapore. I really learned a lot from this. I took a lot of notes, and I think I've been sharing this with a lot of people as well. So yeah, highly recommend. I think all of these books you can buy online, and not sure if they do international shipping, but I'm pretty sure you can get them as ebooks as well. So yeah, that's it for me, and thank you so much for watching. I hope that maybe if you're from overseas or you're in Singapore and you have not read these titles, maybe you might want to pick them up. And currently I do have more titles like in my book list, which I will link below, but like these are the books I can think of now. I am always updating my book list. It's a Notion page, and so in it you can see titles arranged according to certain categories. So hopefully you can find certain interesting titles there as well. So that's all. Do like and comment what you think about these books. Yeah, and let me know if you would like to pick these books up as well, or if there's certain books that you think that I might enjoy. So yeah, thanks for watching, and hope you're having a good day. If not, then I hope you have a good night's rest and a better day tomorrow. So yeah, thanks and bye.